Welcome back for another episode. We are one day late, but maybe we shouldn't tell you that because hopefully you can just forgive us, and you never realised anyway. So we are back again for another week of Don't Be a Doorstop. Thanks as always for turning up and listening to us. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Tap the bell notification so you can get to know when we do publish. Save you checking every week. And yeah, Tom, how's your week going?
I've literally forgotten everything that's happened this week. Yeah, okay. I've not particularly slept that well, and my wife's been ill, so not a great week for me, but still plodding along, still getting things done.
I find when you get asked, everything gets removed from your brain. It also happens like, "How was your weekend?" And I'm like, "We had a weekend," and you kind of forget. So I've started just like jotting down things that I remember about. Well, I can tell you about my yesterday. I played squash, so this is my second
squash adventures.
Second game in the second time that the league has happened, and I got smashed 3-0. This guy was again very, very good, and because I'm a lower division, they're just putting anybody in there and they'll work their way up, right? But he doesn't know, the guy that runs the league doesn't know how good anybody is, so he's just putting people together. So this person was told, oh, he should be in like a higher league by default, but everybody starts low. So I'm like, ugh. So you basically become the lamb to the slaughter. Slam.
So you're basically like the test dummy about to drive into a car that's about to crash.
Yeah, the kind of the freebie basically. For somebody to play against. So
the encourager, as we like to call you.
Yeah, the ego boost. I've basically been the ego boost for now 2 guys, because I think they're meant to be in higher leagues, but they play against me. So, but I think I'm enjoying the learning experience. It's character building of just like, right, come on, like try and push your mindset. To try and beat against these people that are far better than you. So that was the way that it went. But I still enjoyed the game. I'm just looking at all the gains, all the calorie gains, all the heart rate gains and whatever, and realizing that I've been in the kind of the red zone for 20 minutes is probably a good thing, right? So that's how I take as the encouragement.
It from a fitness point of view rather than from a winning-losing point of view.
Yeah. Have you seen the McGregor Forever documentary on Netflix yet?
No, I've not.
So I'll spoil it for you, but it's because it's interesting. So again, his mindset, for people that don't know, Conor McGregor, UFC fighter, he's also done some boxing, from Ireland. Very much as a young age, he was like deluded in a good way with the idea that he was going to be the champion. Kind of like, he's a champion, he's going to win belts in UFC. He actually won 2 belts in different weight categories, and I think that's the first person to win 2 UFC belts in different weight categories. I think that was his thing that he achieved. And when he got beat in one of his matches, he was like, there was a scuffle after, and he was like, I don't care about the scuffle after, that doesn't matter, I got beat and that was it, fair and square. And the fact that his reflection then 5 months after that was like, I got like distracted in the buzz, and I didn't take it seriously. So my mind wasn't really in it. And I feel that's why I lost, because I was a little bit in the bravado or the ego of the game rather than anything else. And I'm like, oh, it's really interesting. Conor McGregor, again, the learning tips is like, anybody that has that vision, that long-term vision of like, I'm going to be a champion. But then if your mind just gets distracted, how that like throws you off. And I was wondering whether or not you have like experiences of when your like mind gets distracted or something, and it kind of like just like diminishes your ability in a game, or like cuts that like top 10% out, which then makes you like lose, you know?
I don't know if I could think of that straight off the head. I think the thing that jumped into my brain is like if you've not ate or slept well, and the first 5 minutes of the game you realise you have 0 energy and it's a high intense game, that's like the worst feeling ever, especially if it's like a must win. And I think that's always encouraged me to, okay, I'm not the most healthiest eater, but at least doing stuff by the book of making sure I'm eating my pasta, making sure I have breakfast, like making sure that I've got maybe some sweets at half time to give me a little boost, or make sure I'm full of water and done my stretches. Because there's nothing worse than walking on the pitch and going, it feels like I can't run. Even though you probably still am fitter than 80% on the pitch or whatever. But again, that could be not good enough for the team. So it is a horrible sort of feeling rocking up.
Who was it that said they want to be confident? No, actually, I think it was my mate Jack. I thought it was actually KSI, but maybe KSI says something similar. Like, Jack wants to be confident, like back in his pentathlon days, he wanted to be confident that he had trained more than the other person, more than his competitor. And the way that he does that is he never like slacks off on his own like discipline, because he wants to know when he comes to that start of the game, he wants to be certainly like absolute confidence that he has trained harder, which has meant the moment that he's like, oh, it's early in the morning, I don't want to go for a run. He's like, if I don't go for a run, this could be the edge that player then has. I'm not sure if KSI said something like similar in the discipline of like preparation, basically.
I think that was your friend Jack, because I remember you saying that to me, because I was saying, yeah, it's sort of what I always got into. If there's any opportunity to do extra fitness, I'd do it, because I'd not only want to be the fittest person, but I'd love to be like 10-20% fitter than everyone else, which looking back at it, it's like, I don't know if that was a clever route, because then your body just takes a hammering from doing more running or fitness or whatever, and actually it diminishes the skills and the creativity and the mindset that comes along the sport, that actually you can think in a different way. But I think because I wouldn't say I was a natural hockey player, in the sense that my whole family's played hockey, or I come from a National League Prem club, so I've seen a high level of hockey at a young age. For me, I felt like it was a lot harder because I was trying to break through barriers. So the only thing I could, to some extent, rely on is my fitness. So at the start of the season, when you're doing fitness tests, that you're in the top 10-20%. So then you stand out. So then if you do mess up from a skill point of view, you know your fitness will always sort of back you up to some regards.
All of this stuff is just reassuring and reconfirming or confirming that sport mindset should be spoken about way more. Even, you know, that I think his name's Jack Humphreys or something. He used to do like sport commentating. He was a BBC guy, and he now does his own podcast, which is about like high intensity or like high performing teams. Is it something Jack or something Humphrey? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Well,
Jake.
He yeah, that's it. Jake. Yeah, Jake. He was trying to say like he's doing this high performance teams podcast, which is interviewing people like F1 people, like all sorts of team sports, and probably individual. I've only listened to a couple of them, and he was like, "Oh, my goal is to basically get this into schools. That it's like a lesson that you listen to, like an hour's worth of this like high performing teams kind of podcast stuff." And again, I'm like, I think keeps on confirming that people that do sport do a bunch of mindset work, and it doesn't really get leaked out. So these Netflix documentaries are great because it's really encouraging. So there's the entrepreneurial journeys, but there's also the sport like mindset journey. And I think as a school place, I think mindset specifically from a sporting angle should be taught like from the off. So I'm like, you know, we've spoken about, you know, potentially running a school at some point or an academy or something. I'd be like, team sports and mindset of team sports definitely would be like high on the curriculum for purely like mindset gains, and then secondary to that like teamwork, tertiary to that fitness, kind of like individual fitness, you know, and like problem solving and all that stuff. But yeah, so like building an academy would be great. Like would you ever want to do an academy of some sorts, or like a hockey school or something like that?
I don't know the word school, because I didn't like school. I think
that's why I say the word academy.
And I'm like,
yeah, we probably just triggered a bunch of people by saying the word school.
Yeah. I guess a community of people that are developing. I like the idea of that. Wouldn't know how to start it, but I do like the thought of doing something. But yeah.
Because yeah, you've been brainstorming some ideas of potentially the next project for yourself. Do you want to share some of that stuff?
Yeah, so just looking at what's on my heart, what's on my brain, what are my giftings, and how can I move forward with that. So the areas that are getting highlighted are hockey, the sport, so field hockey, not ice hockey, helping people in different ways, being sustainable, more so from a financial point of view, or like items or whatever, say things breaking and it all falls together, or like setting up teams. The gospel, so being able to share Jesus' love with people. And the final one was, can't remember.
Creativity
that I added last. So it's more like the gifts of videography and photography can be really useful for those that don't have it or don't understand it, of the power of it. So yeah, it's sort of fleshing out is it me working that out in different spheres or working them together? So I'm slowly getting involved with my local hockey club recently from a coaching and a playing point of view. And I think I've asked them if I could help with their website and socials, just to get a foot in the door of getting to know the committee and the people sort of behind the scenes, to encourage to see what we could do with the team. Because I don't know, I guess there's two mindsets of, I'd love the community, the helping others, the could we make it cheaper for kids that want to play but struggle to afford it, sort of the inclusivity side. But then there's also the sort of performance side of, I'd love it to be the number one club in North Wales, and then Wales, and then try and get a National League team, or try and get a Prem team. So then you're shining a light on hockey within the North Wales area.
I think the Sports Wales stuff and National Lottery funding could be a way to, get a bunch of hockey sticks or hockey balls or like bibs and all the like the equipment that you would need. So then kids from like school age, or secondary school kids, or even, because I think you were playing it younger than that, weren't you? They would be able to get involved like straight away with playing it. And I definitely think there's more emphasis on South Wales than North Wales. So if you created a kind of a high performance, or not even a high performance community, just like an after school club that was like cross team denominational, then it would be interesting, right? In the sense of, you don't have to be a part of Colwyn Bay or Llandudno or Conway or Rail or whoever. You can all come together and we all train together, and you do like a high performance level.
I feel like I'm watching a dubbed movie, because it's syncing and then it's not syncing, then it's syncing.
Oh, my out of sync. Yeah, it looks so good on my side. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, because I was chatting to this team, Northup, and they're in Flintshire, and I'm like, so who plays hockey? Like, I figured it out through school. What schools play hockey? And he's like, none. There's one person that plays goes to the school, but he doesn't have a team. And it's like, so then the rest are sort of the kids, the academy that they're trying to get in, either live outside of the area or are sort of new to the sport, so you wouldn't class them as their performance but play for a school or whatever. But I noticed when we were growing up, there's like 5 to maybe 10 teams or whatever, different primary schools, and then different secondary schools. So there's that structure that you'd be playing a different team each week. So it is interesting how it's like, oh, this is literally grassroots to the point that it's like evangelizing what hockey is to a community that love football.
And broadly speaking, it's kind of like a middle class sport of some sorts, because everyone has to have a hockey stick, right? Whereas in football, you just have one ball. So it's the numbers game. And I think it's also the way that you bring down the barrier and bring like the sense of like togetherness or belonging or inclusion in sport is like the financial hurdle to get in. So if you're able to like, hey, bring kids out of school in school time to have like an hour of like, hey, this hockey stuff. Because I remember like there was it was like I think it was Owen's mum basically ran the hockey stuff, right? So she did like an hour with us when we were in primary school to kind of like see if anybody's interested in this stuff. Some people stuck to it, some people didn't, but that's the way. It's the introduction of it with zero cost to entry. So taking your schools and be like, hey, can I do an hour of hockey for like the sport section of primary school, like year 5, year 6? And then if anybody's interested, you then create a team. And then when they go to secondary school, you'd do the same, right? You'd have like a team that carries through.
Yeah, because I've got an interesting story about that as well. So my wife Megan's birthday last year, we had a lot of people invited over, and we had a couple of kids there. And then I just got some of my hockey sticks out, and basically I was playing football with them, then I was playing hockey with them, and they didn't have a clue what was a hockey stick or how to hold it. But then actually it was fascinating because one of the kids didn't really get involved at all when we were playing football or basketball, all the sort of go-to sports that are easy accessible, I guess is the best way to put it. But then he like loved the hockey part, to the point that basically the parents have now took him to the local hockey team, and has took him all year. So then the point I spotted on socials yesterday, apparently that kid had a certificate for under sevens being player of the season.
Oh,
and
awesome.
That's the thing, is just one introduction of one at a birthday party messing
well
about
done.
with a kid to be
that's origin story, that is. Yeah, you should sponsor him into the...
It's just that introduction and seeing what sticks for everyone. It's not saying you have to play it, but it's just going, all you people that want to be professional footballers, that's really tough. So have you ever tried any other sports? Because actually, when they get older, a lot of footballers will probably then end up doing golf. Well, that's not a particularly cheap sport either. If anything, it's the complete opposite of, you got one of the cheapest sports to do, football, you need one football, and then you probably got one of the most expensive sports, apart from like F1,
where you basically need 9 hockey sticks.
But it's like, could you go and do like hockey just to try that out to keep your fitness, or even just other sports? Like, I'm randomly interested in golf more and snooker more, just because it's like, it's something that you could just go to a driving range on your own. You don't need a team.
It's an indoor it's an indoor sport. That's why I like squash. You can play it on a rainy day because you're inside. So, and it has the variation of fast and slow, like power and also skill. So it's like interchangeable. But I would be like, so does that mean you're going to start off like, basically, if you got together 40 hockey sticks and like 5 or 6 hockey balls and went to be like, hey, I'm DBS checked, can I do an hour of hockey with primary school A, primary school B, primary school C? And then you would basically be like, right, if you're interested, sign up for a league and create like a Flint school league, which would be the grassroots to then Northup.
Essentially, but it sounds like Northup has got a hockey academy that kids go to. But I think they were like, emailed all the schools to say, we don't mind running stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want to get involved? And by the sounds of it, no one did, because actually it sounds like the teachers or TAs or whoever they were messaging clearly didn't have the capacity, which I'm there going, if you're a school that are local hockey clubs willing just to give you a little boost, surely you'd bite the hand off, because it's only one session, or maybe it could be like a term full of sessions or whatever. So it would be quite interesting just to, instead of going, I've got all the answers and walking into the club, it's sort of going, okay, what is the club doing? How are they running the website? How are they running the socials? How are they doing the first teams compared to the academy? And then is there anything I can help? And I think it's being that listening ear of, I'm not going to try and recreate the wheel, but hopefully I can add my experience, knowledge, information, whatever, along the way.
Because the academy would be the difference between the academy and, let's say, like the grassroots school stuff would be that the academy is weekly training sessions and weekly games of the people in the academy, right?
So at the moment it's weekly training sessions, and then it might be like a day of hockey within like a school holiday.
Right, yeah. Like a training day, you mean?
Yeah. So the weekly one is normally just people in the local area / whoever's willing to travel. So apparently there's someone there from Oswestry that travels, which is like an hour and a half, maybe 2, I think. But on the hockey days, that goes over all of North Wales. So actually quite a lot of people from Carnarvon go to that, even though sometimes it's in Colwyn Bay, which is like a 40 plus minute journey, but it's because nothing's happening in that direction. So over summer holidays, well, if you want to do the sport you want to do, you have to travel for it. So it is interesting.
But there'd still be rooms, so that would be like, cool, you kind of have to have a hockey stick, right, to go to that level, and you have to be like going weekly. But it still feels like the real grassroots level would be like a school league. And ultimately, if schools say, "Oh, not now," then maybe you just try again next term. Like, "Oh, what about in the winter term or whatever?" So then you build this grassroots like school infrastructure, and then anybody that wants to like take it more seriously, they join the academy. And then anybody that wants to join like an actual, like, if they get seeded into the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, however many divisions or like team tiers that you have, that then like play consistent games, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And
so it's interesting because it's like it's as if you're trying to birth a sport that's been around for ages, but it's as if it's never been born at all in the area to some extent.
Yeah. I wonder whether or not hockey teams would be willing to donate some of their membership fee down to a grassroots kind of tier for somebody to run like a school infrastructure. So like, let's say every hockey team in North Wales gives you X amount per year or term or whatever to facilitate the training and basically the grassroots of, like, you go into year 6 or year 5 and you do like 1 hour of like hockey with the schools in the area once a term or something. But how do hockey teams make their money? Because they don't have the level of like winning prize money, do they?
No, it would probably be either membership. So if the membership covers all the costs, but then you get a little bit of money. Sponsorship, you might get money from that. So if you've got shirt sponsors and stuff like that, but again, that might just help cover the cost of the pitch or something.
How much is it to rent a pitch, do you know?
Apparently they've got a good deal of 150 quid for 2 hours, and apparently that's really good. I think it was.
And how much is a hockey stick and a hockey ball?
Hockey ball can be like 3 quid maybe. Hockey stick 30 quid cheap, like 250 more expensive. But that's the thing, is one thing I'll be quite interested in is I remember chatting to a dude and making friends with him who's a guy that was based in Loughborough trying to play for GB. I think he was under 21s back when I was chatting with him. And I think he was a Londoner, and he partnered up with an actual GB player that was from Loughborough, who I think was 2 years older than him. And it's basically they were trying to do inner city hockey. So I think they got sponsored by a hockey brand to then get given loads of sticks, loads of balls, and they were playing in like football cages. So then there was no cost associated to it, because they recognised, well, the streets that they were aiming for, they were going for the sort of minority groups of the city. So then it was really interesting, because obviously minority groups, like hockey is a white sport, particularly in like North Wales and stuff. So they were aiming for people that would more likely than not love football and go down that route, but actually give them more opportunities of other things that they might not be able to have a chance, because it's just a higher threshold of a cost.
Because globally, the key areas for hockey is like India, Australia, Netherlands, right? Would that be right?
Yeah.
Those are like the key countries that play hockey, which is
they'd probably class it as their one of their
biggest
main sports, like we would do football or rugby for Wales or England, or cricket maybe a push. Yeah,
so you basically get a hockey brand in North Wales. There is that. There's a massive sports warehouse in Wrexham somewhere, I think. They provide a bunch of sport equipment. I would like, could you get that Wrexham Sport Equipment Company to sponsor this grassroots, county level grassroots thing, and you first try it in Conway or Denbighshire or Flint or whatever, and then you slowly start building it out. But the trouble is like, it is the 30 quid for the hockey stick. I mean, you could buy 100 hockey sticks and just have those as the trials. But then if that kid wanted to go into the academy, how do you get that kid a full-on hockey stick?
So I know what Colne Bay used to do. I don't know if they still do, but they used to have like a mini trailer that had loads of old hockey sticks, basically. I don't know
even
if
when
they
you
bought them or was sponsored them or people donated them, but a lot of the time.
Because what do you do?
I used to give my old hockey sticks to them because they would basically leave this trailer open. So if you go along to their Saturday training, you can then pick a hockey stick and use for that session. So I thought that was very sort of good in that regards.
Yeah. It's super interesting because I'm like, do it, lad. Basically create a organization that generates grassroots hockey as the starting point, where you go into schools and you do an hour of hockey with kids. You get Sport Wales funding to buy a bunch of hockey sticks, or you go to a hockey brand or like a sports direct type company to sponsor like £1,000 worth of hockey equipment, and then you build it into, you basically putting kids into the hockey clubs. But it is like there's no sustainability as such because it's just hockey stuff. But you hope that these kids, maybe the success rate is 20%, 30% of the kids that you take will actually go into full-time hockey. And those would be now lifetime purchase, lifetime value people for that hockey brand. And they would stick with them. Because like when I was a kid, I played with, I don't even know any hockey brands. Greys, yeah. I played with a Grey stick and I've stuck with Greys, you know. Or even if you try and get a challenger, if there's a new kid on the block when it comes to like a hockey brand, and you'd take them and be like, cool, we're building this grassroots infrastructure that's going to basically be the revolutionizing of the sport in North Wales, because there is no like centralized place. And I wonder if you could get I wonder if you could create then like a tournament at the very, very, very end, where it's a tournament of all the counties or something, where you get the teams, like the best team from Conway play and stuff, and then they win some sort of like a trophy. And it would basically be big brands because you get a bunch of local companies to sponsor it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ideas floating around. You can tell it's morning. I've not spoken to anyone this morning, and my throat is dying at the moment. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of ideas, because even just on the performance side, I would love just to do like video analysis or something that a high team would do, but just drop it down to lower teams. So as a kid, you know what that means and looks like. So if you do go to uni or go to a better hockey team, you don't feel like you completely don't know what's going on. So I think that's what I didn't like, is like you're going into teams that have got all the kit that you're like, oh, I so wish I would have had this when I was younger, even if I wouldn't have played as well. It's just I didn't realize how much I liked the video analysis side of it, or I don't know how much I realized the photography side of like taking photos to then put on social or whatever that thing is.
And to be honest, the video stuff is easy, right? You literally position a camera and you do a drag flick or whatever. Now, drag flick's basically the equivalent of a corner or a penalty, right? So you would do kind of like a drag flick-esque thing and record yourself doing it, and then you just watch it back in slow motion. So it's just literally recording yourself in slow motion with an iPhone, right?
Yes, I've done that, but it's more like the team element of recording the whole team at play to see, oh, that's where that person should have moved on, and then you'd have gone into the space. So more of a live stream of your team, and then picking out certain segments of it.
And that's because you had sensors, right? You had individual like sensors that you were running with, like GPS sensors, or was it just a camera fixed above the pitch kind of thing?
So just a camera fixed above the pitch, but separately I have had that GPS that tells you how much you've run in, I think it's like every quarter of the match, and how far you did and what was your top speed and that. And I found that really fascinating, because that was obviously before, I think even before Apple Watches existed. Obviously, I know you'd have some stuff, but...
Yeah, kids might have Apple Watches, and if they do, then it's good to have like the heart rate zones, because I've only recently been introduced to the heart rate zones of like zone 1 to 5, and in particular zones you get particular benefits. So zone 5 is where your heart rate is very, very high, and that is typically, if you stay in that zone, I think it's working more so on like what's it when you run, what's that stuff, cardio. It's working on like the cardio benefit, but if you have it slightly slower, it's working on fat burning benefit or whatever it is. So you want to kind of get yourself into a particular zone for the benefit of the said zone, which is insightful. So what's going to be your first step?
I think the first step was just getting everything on paper. and then having the confidence to slowly walk it out. Because I think for me, it's I've got a big idea / vision, but I'm probably the lowest confidence I've had. So it's sort of going, okay, what does one step look like? What does one step look like?
And the big idea vision is,
well, all the things that we said, all those top ideas,
impacting those pillars. Yeah,
I think I don't like saying this specific thing, because I'm aware that when you chat to people and they're like, oh yeah, that was done last year and it completely failed. So I prefer to be a little bit more flexible, because it's not like football that there's a certain way of doing things that then as long as you mirror the Premier League clubs, then it works out. Because it's a bit different, because let's say we grew a bunch of hockey players that are really good and then just sold them all to top teams. Well, that doesn't really happen, because then if you sold them all, that would make you the money and then you can build the infrastructure. Well, that's great for football, like a Brighton that sell their players to higher clubs that then sustain them and then like profit, unlike a lot of other teams. But like from a hockey point of view, well, that doesn't really work, because it's a hobby rather than a profession. And actually, if it is a profession, you're probably playing for Great Britain. Like even playing Prem, you might only just get some money towards your petrol or half a wage or whatever. You might not necessarily be able to live off it. So
and I assume,
it's recognizing people will have different passions and go to different universities or have different jobs, and you're wondering, will that hockey follow them or not?
And really, the only way you make money in these things is by attention and wanting like access. So, you know, merch is one way, but you need to be big enough for people to want merch. So it's kind of buying into like paying to see these teams play. And really the only reason why you're going to pay to see them play is because they're of a particular level, of an interesting level. And also that there's sponsorships associated with the fact that people are watching these teams play, right? Because basically you're in, I assume, what league is Northup in? And who controls the league?
The league is like an English league that's England and Wales league, but it's called England Hockey. And they're in Northwest Division, I want to say like 4 or 5 North. It's quite complicated.
Because it reminds me of, I probably mentioned this before, but you know The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he created his own NFL called XNFL, I think it is, which is basically that last person that's not good enough to get into the team, but is still very good. And he basically created a bunch of leagues around, like a league around that. And I'm like, could you create your own North Wales league? But then how would you sell that? How would you make that sustainable? You would have to have North Wales-esque things, and maybe you would have like a video subscription, so people could subscribe to watch the games, but then you'd have to record the games and have some commentators. So you'd need like infrastructure. But then I'd be like, why would people bother? Why? Like, what's the interest?
Back in the day, they used to have a North Wales league, but because if you played in the English league, you weren't allowed to play in the Wales one. Well, everyone slowly moved over. So Colwyn Bay had their 4th team in the North Wales league. So we would just drop people or like kids that wanted to play more hockey on the Sundays to play in those teams. Well, I'm pretty sure we won the league, but it's like, well, that's technically our 4th team, but it was a mix of 1st team, 2nd team, kids that weren't able to play on a Saturday. So it didn't quite work, because the standard sort of dropped off the cliff compared to playing against a lot more other teams in the English league. But yeah, it's looking at all options, and I guess it's sort of looking at football, because you have the Welsh Prem. Well, what makes people want to go to that? Well, it seems like local football, particularly, there's more people going to Colwyn Bay Football Club. Well, they've been promoted back to Welsh Prem, but they had to work their way up, similar to your squash league, because they actually jumped into the English league because they thought, oh, we'll get more money and I think more exposure. But I think they really struggled because it's such a high competition, and there's probably more bigger towns than Colwyn Bay within England or whatever that they're competing against that have got more of a fan base. So then they really struggled. So then they changed their mind and went back to the Wales one, and then had to start from scratch, or had to start at a certain point. Now they're back up to Prem.
Yeah, It reminds me of the new golf leagues that are coming out that are competitive, and the reason why they're competitive is because they're paying more. So if the prize money is more, you'll draw more attention. If also you kind of have a bit more flexibility in the rules, people are more likely to join, right? So for example, the whole tennis thing of like you have to wear white when you play Wimbledon. Like if you were like, well, we're going to make a league where you can wear whatever color you want, people might join it more because of the rigid nature of a particular historic thing that they do. So I think it's like, could you create a league that is a little bit different and give them? It also reminds me of the esports stuff. Esports in Wales is like popping off, which is to see. So how are they doing it? Well, they're getting a bunch of sponsors and kind of getting that funding in. People are already streaming, people are already playing the games, and then you kind of club it together, and then you'll say, oh, the prize money is 600 quid. Cool, you're willing to play a couple of games for that because you already are doing the games. So could you be like, get 3 businesses willing to donate £1,000, and then you're like, right, whoever wins the North Wales Hockey League, they're going to win like £3,000 for their club. Like that would be pretty significant for a club that's basically built on membership and volunteers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting. A good problem to have. Problem solving.
I think it'd be really interesting, especially if you took the whole like, I can't even remember the name of it, but the Saudi Arabia golf tournament. I can't remember the name of it now.
Live Golf or something? Yeah,
Live Golf. If you basically became like the Live Golf of North Wales to like dominate, because you're going to provide this like different level of quality and appearance and style and stuff. It'd be super, super fascinating. And really deep down, all this is about is instilling a bit of purpose, right? And a bit of like discipline and all those qualities into young kids that will then help them as they go into different aspects of life. Well, this is our Welcome to Wrexham documentary of the starting point of Tom Ryland's Ryland Tournament, North Wales. Are you allowed to even just create a tournament and ask teams to join, or would like the Wales hockey be like, you're not allowed to do this?
I don't know. I don't know why they would stop you, really.
Well, taking money away from them. If as soon as you start, if they perceive it as you taking stuff away from them, maybe they'd kick off. I would be very fascinated. I would love this. I would love this to actually happen. It'd be like really, really interesting.
We'll see.
I'll put £1,000 in for the prize and get people to play against it. I mean, even that, like, if you said, hey, we're looking at creating a new North Wales league, it's £100 to join, to get signed up, and the prize is £1,000. Like, how many teams in the whole of North Wales would join that and, like, play that?
Maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But I think the difficulty is I think there's probably only 1 or 2 that could win it. It's I don't know. It's probably becoming more similar to football in the sense that you know who's going to win it.
Unless you had a tiered.
Yeah, that's what I'd prefer to do, is if you could help all clubs to somehow develop together. So then there's a higher competition, then something like that would be really interesting.
So you do a cross-club thing. But what I would also
or
say...
create some sort of model to then share it with others.
Which would be this grassroots in schools, a way to basically build people into the academy that you've created, which is your Saturday trainings, which then is the funnel basically for kids to join hockey, right?
Yeah, which would be tough because I guess it's heavy reliant on volunteers.
But initially, you'd be the volunteer going to year 6 and be like, right, we're going to do an hour of hockey, which you wouldn't mind doing that. So long as somebody could take care of the logistics of arranging stuff and arranging times and which school to turn up to and all that stuff, then, and we get some like greys to give you 40 hockey sticks, which I think would be fully doable.
Me looking after a year 6 group.
Do it, lads. Do it, lads.
I need to practice my teaching and discipline.
Well, the best way to do it is like just do it. You'll learn through doing. So, I mean, the worst thing is like, right. Well, actually, you probably aren't allowed to do this anymore. But it's like you're speaking, right? Everybody do 10 press-ups. Is that allowed these days? Like, you know, the whole like
probably not. That's why I'd probably have to go back to
some sort of like training to figure out what is and isn't allowed to motivate a team. So sweet. And on that note, what would be your league name? Finish it off with the league name. What would you call the league?
League name? I don't know. I have no idea. Write in the comments.
Yeah. The word abundance comes to life, but maybe that's the Abundance League. I don't think that sounds quite good. Or you could just call it X Hockey. But
League of Legends.
Yeah, League of...
That's a game.
It would probably be copyrighted, yeah. League of... I don't know. But post your Hockey League names into the chat, and until next time, keep hammering those nails. Bye for now.